Let me just record that first. So everyone, welcome to this evening's topic discussion. We are discussing on a principle-centered approach to parenting. I hope that the topic was interesting to you. Actually, I can't remember when I read this book. I think it was something like about 10 years ago. I read Stephen Covey's book on principle-centered leadership. When I found that book, I said, oh my God, he's talking about what I've been thinking about all these years. And then I noticed that the book was written something like 5 to 7 years before that. So, so great to know that somebody was able to put together in, I would say, in structured manner, all the wild thinking that I had surrounding me at that time. And so I thought that what if we were to approach parenting from this perspective? And when I started to do that, then it became, I would say, if I were to use the word, it became clearer. It's able to give me a better insight into how we can approach parenting. So let me just put it out, the slide that I have prepared for you on a principle-centered approach to parenting, referring to when we parent our children, we are not just being driven by trends of fashion, what's around us, but to understand what are the principles that will be much more beneficial and much more lasting for us. So that's what this principle-centered approach to parenting is all about for this evening. Now, before I continue on, just to for those of you who are joining for the first time, that this session we are handling it under the Institute of Neurosemantics, Malaysia, and first Thursday of the month we cover on Neurosemantics series. Second Thursday of the month we cover on relationship series. Third Thursday of the month, we cover on the Meta Coaching series. And the fourth Thursday of the month, we cover on parenting series. So those are basically the topics that we are covering in these sessions. I've met all of you, so you know my name. So I'll just skip that particular introduction. And just that we have people in this room today who are maybe you have not met before. So what I'll do, as usual, I would just like to invite each and every one of you just to introduce yourself by saying your name and where you are calling from. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll begin with the top right hand corner of my screen. Danielle, would you like to go ahead and start off?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle. I'm calling from PJ. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. And moving over to Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Mark. I'm calling in from Klang. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark, from Klang. And Dr. Shakir, go ahead. Your turn.
Hello, my name is Shakir Mustafa. I am from Kuala Lumpur. Welcome. We see again tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shakir. And over to you, Marilyn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marilyn Chua, and I'm from Klang.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you for joining us again. And over to you, Sian. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Suyin from Bukit Rahman Putra.
Bukit Rahman Putra. Thank you, Sian, for joining us. And Satria, your turn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Satria from Monkera, Kuala Lumpur.
Thank you, Satria. Oh, okay. So we have. Oh. Right. Just now, Pak Rico, he's dropped out of the room. He was the first one to join earlier. So that's Pak Rico from Jakarta, joining us from Jakarta. Okay, so let's get move on to the topic that we have for this evening. Now, this evening, this topic on a principle-centered approach to parenting, basically we are exploring questions that we face as parents and grandparents. One of the things that we do as parents is we want to keep them safe. Like now we have COVID and all that. However, safe in terms of their mental, emotional, physical health, to keep them safe. At the same time, in order for them to grow, we need to challenge them. So that's one thing that we need to be thinking about, how to keep our children safe and challenge them at the same time. Another question that I hope that this session will unfold for you is that what do you teach your children when the world is changing at a rapid pace? It is changing so fast. So what is it that we need to teach our children? And another question that probably we can be we'll be discussing about is, how do you maintain control yet give your children the freedom and autonomy to grow? So those are three questions that I thought would be something that we want to keep in mind as we discuss this particular topic this evening. Now, there are quite a number of sub topics. So hold on, participants. Yeah, I'm just allowing another participant to join. Chin joining us. Okay. So these are the topics that we'll be covering this evening. Just a quick introduction, and we'll in a short while I'll just go through some preliminaries about this topic. And again, as a reminder for those of you who are familiar, if you see this topic and you feel it familiar, yes, this topic is inspired by the book Principle-Centered Leadership by Dr. Stephen Covey. The third point is looking at some observations of the problem that we are facing in our world today. The solution I'm bringing over here is to center on natural principles, because natural principles are timeless. The fifth point is what we'll be covering is leadership by compass. Point number 6 is on the 4 dimensions, and point number 7 on the neurosemantics of parenting. And then we'll wrap everything up after that. So I'd like to start off this particular session by this, I would say, Covey considers this basic principle of effective leadership, because as parents, you are leaders, we are leaders. So this is the basic principle that we need to bring in as we parent our children. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And this principle is I would say timeless, because as parents, when we bring our children into this world, they are totally dependent on us. So that is the stage of dependence. By the age of about 6 years old and going to 12 and then moving to 18 years old, they begin to learn independence. So as parents, when they are dependent, we want to quickly teach them the skills that they need so that they can be independent of us as they grow up. So that's what teaching them how to fish is all about, to get our children to be able to live a life of their own. They don't need to rely on us. So paying it forward, that's what our parents did to us. They did things that helped us to be able to stand on our own feet, to be able to continue life. So that's the circle of life. Now, what prevents people from being able to do that is that people learn the habits of not being effective. So if you are familiar with the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, so these are the 7 habits of ineffective people. And the reason why I'm bringing this to you is I want you to look at each and every one of these habits of ineffective people and ask yourself, as a parent, are there any of these habits in your parenting? Because if there are any of these habits in your parenting, then you are being ineffective in parenting your children. And when we as parents are not effective in parenting our children, they do not grow up to be independent in their life. Meaning to say they have not learned how to fish because we have been continually giving them fish and not teaching them how to fish. So what are the 7 habits of ineffective people? The first one there is be reactive. Doubt yourself and blame others. So the question that I want you to ask is that, am I doing this to my child? Because children learn through modeling. Children model you. So if there are any of these habits inside of you, then I hope you will ring some alarm bell. So the first one is being reactive, doubting yourself and blaming others. Second one is work without any clear end in mind. So as you are parenting your child is now about 3 years old. Working without any clear end in mind, you are just fighting fires. You are just taking care of them at that stage. Do you know what's going to come next? And what's going to come next? And what's going to come next? So this is one of the habit of ineffective people. The third one is do the urgent things first. Aren't we very good at that? Fighting fires? Do the urgent things first. So the habit of effective people is they focus on priorities, quadrant 2 activities. So just take a look at that. How guilty are we in doing that? The fourth one is think, win, lose. Think, win, lose is not so rare. A lot of parents, they tend to think win, lose with the children in the sense that they just want the children to quickly follow what they say, and they'll say and do things in ways that are manipulative. That prevents the child from learning resourceful ways of achieving whatever it is that they need to learn. And one of the things that parents do that create the win-lose situation is by not telling the truth or by giving half truth to children in order to get by. Children need to know the truth. I remember those of you who are familiar with me, I keep giving example of grasshopper. I remember when grasshopper was about 5, 6 years old, she was reading and she was when she looked some references, she noticed that there are lies, so-called white lies that parents throw at their children. And she was curious about that, and she went up to her mama and asked her mama, "Mama, is it true that some parents lie to their children?" And my daughter answered to Grasshopper and said, "Yes, some parents do lie to their children." She went silent for a moment, and then she went up to her mama, hugged her mama, and said, "Mama, thank you for not lying to me." Children need to know the truth. Sometimes parents give half truths in order to get at the outcome that they want there and then. Okay, so thinking win-lose is a sure way of being ineffective with your children. The next one is seek first to be understood. This is also parents are focusing on getting the child to understand them so that the child can quickly do what they want the child to do, not taking the time and giving the space for the child to explain him or herself before them doing so. So this is another habit that people who are ineffective, that they seek first to be understood. The next habit is, if you can win, compromise. So this is in the context of not finding a more resourceful solution. Covey used the term the third alternative instead of a compromise. Yes, there are times that we need to compromise. At the same time, look for the third alternative. This is what you want for your child. This is what your child wants. Look for the third alternative that is resourceful for both parties. So instead of a compromise, looking for a third alternative. And the seventh habit of ineffective people is that they fear change and put off improvement. So these are the 7 habits of ineffective people as part of the preliminary to this particular session that we have for this evening. So I'd like to just pause there, give an opportunity for any one of you to ask questions or comments. Before I do that, I just want to welcome Chin Tao Wee for joining us. Hi, thank you for joining us wherever that you are joining us from. Thank you. And yes, I'll open it to question or comments from everyone else. Go ahead. Are you good there? Okay.
Yes, we're good.
Thank you, Marilyn. So let's move to the... Oh, why does that one come in? That one has got the same name as I have. I wonder why that one comes in.
Looks like you too.
Hi, sayang.
Oh, okay.
Can you send me the link?
Huh?
Can you send me the link? You forgot to send me the link.
Oh.
So I need to go in through you. So that's why my face is your face.
You can just what do you call? Start your camera and you'll have that.
Because I don't want to open my camera.
Oh, okay. So just rename so that people know that it is you. Oh,
but they see your picture.
Never mind, it's my picture. That's when I was younger, so I look much better during that time. So that's a better half there. Ibu Rose, thank you very much for doing that. Okay, next one is some observations of the problems that we see. And I hope that as we take a look at these problems, I hope that you are going to take whatever that we are discussing this evening as a means for reflecting on how we are parenting our children. Okay, so some observations of the problem is that some people justify heavy-handed means in the name of virtuous ends. And parents, we sometimes are guilty of doing that. Yeah, we are guilty of doing that, meaning to say we use our bigger physical size to force our children to follow what we want them to do. Because as far as we are concerned, what they need to do is the best for them. So we use our authority. So this is what referring to heavy-handed means in order to achieve the goal. So bringing it for long term, isn't that Machiavellian about things? That the end justifies the means. Whereas a self-actualizing person goes by the maxim, the end does not justify the means. The means by which we bring our children to that end must be integrous with whatever end that we want to achieve with the growth of the child. So the problem that we see over here is that people use heavy-handed means in order to achieve a certain good end that they want. In professional football, and another example here is that some players, they don't bother to train during the off season because they think that they just want to lay back. It's just that when they get back into season, then they have to struggle harder. And does that happen in swimming, Mark, Marilyn? Or do you have to continue to train all the time? Okay, so that's another issue. And parents, some parents don't pay the price with the kids, thinking they can fake it for the public image and then shout and yell and slam the door. Yeah. So don't, you see, children model the parents. When the parents don't take the opportunity to fully explain things, however, using heavy-handed approach, trying to fake things in order to get the children to comply, that's when later on they'll face the consequences. So by faking that everything is good and fine, not taking the time to look into issues that the children are facing, then when the children grow up, the parents then they are shocked to see their teenage kids experiment with drugs, alcohol, and sex to fill the void in their lives. Why? Because the parents did not take the time paying the price, meaning to say, to nurture, to grow, to protect the child when the child was growing. Many parents take teenage rebellion and rejection personally, simply because they are too emotionally dependent upon the children's acceptance. The children will go through that time when they rebel and reject, and yet some parents take it personally because they themselves are not healthy emotionally. So what happens is that it creates a state of collusion where the parents and the children feed on each other's weaknesses to validate their perceptions of one another and to justify their own lack of production. So these habits of ineffectiveness, we talk about the 7 habits of ineffectiveness, they come into being because parents suffer this issue of trying to get a quick fix, short-term thinking. And that is why one of the things that I've come across frequently, parents wanting quick solutions to things and not wanting to go into the core of the issue. The thing is that that's why what is his name, Glenn Dorman, what he said was, take care of the first 6 years of the child's life, and then the next 6 years, so from 0 to 6, that is a stage that they go through, and then from 7 to 12, that's another stage that they go through. When you take care of the first 6 years and the second 6 years, then the third 6 years and the fourth 6 years of the child of the child's life will fall into place. The issue is that when parents don't take care of the first 6 years, then the foundation is weak. The foundation is not strong. And because of that, the second 6 years, it is not very stable. That's when they go into the third, 6th years of their life, that's when they face problems. That's when parents begin to notice problems about their children. Okay, so I'd just like to pause there to invite questions or comments. I'd like to first welcome Samson for joining us. Samson, how are you? Thank you for joining us, and also Bonnie. So you've just joined us. Welcome for joining us. And Pak Rico, I see your 2 little cucu there. So, questions or comments? Everyone good with that? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Marilyn, you want to say something?
No, good. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. See, my background was in engineering, and I specialized in soil improvement. The thing about soil improvement is when you do something to the soil to improve the soil, people cannot see on the ground. So typically, sometimes developers, they skip that part, but they pay the price later. Yeah. One of the examples that I can give, there was this polytechnic in, I will not mention exactly the place. There was this one polytechnic in Johor. They opened tender to repair the damages to the polytechnic, because the polytechnic was built, it was completed, it was in operation for 1 year. After 1 year of operation, they had to close the polytechnic temporarily to do repairs, because not only the columns, the beams were also cracking. So we went there. My company, we were specializing in soil improvement. The moment we went there, we noticed that we knew what the problem was. Because in that particular area, they have issues with soft soil, and all that they need to do was treat the soil, strengthen the soil first before building the polytechnic. And my estimation, had they strengthened the soil, it would have added not more than 3 million ringgit to the construction of the polytechnic. However, to rectify it, our solution to the client, to rectify it, it would cost them 20 million ringgit to do that. So the reason why I'm giving you that example is that if you don't handle the problems, the habits of ineffectiveness in the first 6 years, and then the second 6 years, the problems that you face in the third 6 years of the child's life will be too great. It will be too big. So that's why the solution that we are bringing this evening is what we call to center on natural principles. So this is what we are referring to, the principle-centered approach to parenting. The solution is for us to center on natural principles. Because the problems that we face with respect to bringing the children up in the first 6 years and the second 6 years are problems that you cannot put a band-aid on it. You need to look at the foundation. To understand the foundation, only then you can help the child to grow. So natural laws based upon principles operate regardless whether we are aware or not aware about them. Natural laws are like the law of gravity. Regardless whether you know or don't know the law of gravity, you have to obey. A person can say, I don't believe in gravity. Try jumping off from your house from the first floor. Even if you don't believe the law of gravity, the law of gravity will pull you down to the ground very quickly. Okay, so these are natural laws. They apply in everything that happens in our life. Now, the only thing that endures over time, because laws may come and go, however, the thing that endures over time is the law of the farm. And the law of the farm is very simple and straightforward. You cannot skip the stages, but you need to do that. One is to prepare the ground. So the first 6 years, what do? Put in the seed. So that's when the as parents, we need to begin teaching our children certain things that they do not know. One of the things they don't know is to run their brain, because their brain is not fully developed yet. So we need to teach them how to run their brain in incremental ways, as and when they are able to use that. Law of the farm. After you put in the seed, you need to cultivate it. After cultivating it, weeds will grow. Oh yes, when they go, or no matter how good you have been with the child, giving them the right understanding, the right beliefs, the right values, the moment they meet other children, other adults, they go to school outside there, weeds will begin to grow. They come in, they come home with so many unresourceful beliefs and understanding. So we need to weed it. Next is to water it, to nurture the parts that are good, that are healthy. As you take out the ones that are not healthy, you want to water the seed in order for it to grow, and then to gradually nurture the growth and develop to full maturity. So that's when we are talking about the third 6 years and the fourth 6 years in the child's life. So that's the law of the farm. Now, if we as parents were to try to use manipulative strategies and tactics to get other people to do what we want, to get our children to do what we want, while our character is flawed, or when our competency is questionable, then we can't be successful over time. So that's why the term they use is leading by example is critical when it comes to parenting. They will model our character. So that's why we need to fix our character. So when we talk about raising children, it is not about teaching them what to do. It starts off with teaching ourselves what we need to do in order to be congruent with our values. So we need to be competent in that way. Significant breakthroughs often represent internal break with traditional ways of thinking, and only then we have the paradigm shift. So this principle-centered leadership introduces a new paradigm that we center our lives and our leadership of our family, our children, on a certain true north principle, not taking just what's out there, but we need to decide where our true north is. And when we talk about true north, we are not just talking about values, because values are affected by what's outside. Principles here, principles are not invented by us or by society. They are the laws of the universe that pertain to human relationships and human organizations. So what do we understand about the principles pertaining to human relationships? We are not talking about strategies, but the principles behind them. So principles are part of human condition, consciousness and conscience. So when we are able to mold our life according to the principles of nature, that's when we are able to live in harmony with those principles. That's when we are able to experience the principles in our life. What are they? Fairness, equity, justice, integrity, honesty, and trust. And when we base our life's values on these principles of fairness, equity, justice, integrity, honesty, and trust, that's when we move towards beyond survival, and we move into areas of growth in our life. Okay, I'm going to pause there and invite any comments or questions.
Mansuki,
Yes.
I've been thinking and wonder. Let's say if we were to think principle-centered parenting, what is the opposite of non-principle-centered to parenting? What is the clearly differences we can clearly pull out so that whatever you speak here now, it will appear as a thing that's what really happening, because it's involved. Because we are the matured parent dealing with the young boy, young guys. So a matter of to get to know about the person and how to guide them according to the principles as we required to do so. Can you elaborate on that aspect?
Yeah. So later on, I'll go into the principles that we will use in parenting. However, a very good point over there. This is a contrast frame. What contrasts to principle? So on what we are raising our children, we raise our children from principles. The contrast to that is raising children using trends, fashion, what's popular in society right now. So those are what's out there. And little children are attentional. They look at what's out there and that's what they take. So if we raise our children based upon just what's out there, what people in society are doing, not having those principles, that's when our parenting becomes spineless. We are subject to the weather, we are subject to the trends and fashions of society, and because of that, our children do not grow to be strong, because it is the principles that will keep them strong. Okay, so that's probably the contrast. On one hand, you have the principle. On the other hand, you have the trends, fashion, what's popular, and it is not based upon something that is solid. I'm referring to the human psychology and the way that human beings operate. So that's what I am contrasting that. Thank you, Dr. Shakir. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Indirectly, you are talking about pulling and pushing factors that can influence the children. And secondly, as you explained, that there are things that we need to tell them, right? There are things that we have to instill, to cultivate.
Yeah.
And then secondly, there are things as natural. So to be able to do that, a person must be wiser enough to find the best way from which side that he will come in to his kids to explain the principle. Because that's why, as you told about the small kid asking about the truth from the mother, right? Something like this is did ever parent lie to their children, right? So when you speak to them, see the beauty when we speak to the children is God given to them some of the ability that we don't have. We have it previously, but it's normal because their emotion is so strong. No? They are very strongly motivated by the emotion, internal emotion, the feeling. That's why one of the things to do to get to used to the children is to touch them, right? To touch them, handle them. That's the first approach we should do, because that kind of feeling that create a very, very friendly. He feel that he's being somebody love and cares for him. That is bigger than 1,000 words. Will that also consider part of the center positive side of principle-centered parenting?
Yes, thank you for putting that point in. Yes, this is part, because when we talk about principle-centered parenting, we are going into the core relationship between parent and child. So these are part of the principles that we need to take into account as we parent our children. Yeah. So thank you very much for that. So I'm just looking at the point that Ibu Rose put there. But the situation we are facing now, many parents do not drive their own brain. So yes, that's a problem. That's why we as parents need to know how to drive our brain. And the issue of driving our brain, to me, it has become, to a certain extent, a vicious cycle, endemic, because remember I mentioned to you about parents wanting to take shortcuts. Instead of explaining to their children, they tell the children what to do, because they know what the outcome that they want. Instead of telling, instead of explaining, they tell. When parents take that shortcut, what happens is that the child doesn't learn how to think. And because of that, they continue not thinking. And I was just having a conversation with a friend this afternoon. I have had situation where parents bring their children. This is after SPM, after the O levels. They are supposed to apply for university, but they say that my daughter, my son, has no clue about what he wants to study in the university. And typically, I ask them, what is it that you want? I don't know. What is it that you like? I don't know. I have to turn the conversation. Okay, so what is it that you don't want? Only then I'm able to get something out from them. And I don't blame them, because for over 16 years of their lives, parents have hijacked the thinking of the child by telling the child to do every little thing. So it comes to the point whereby the child gives up the thinking ability to the parents. Okay, no need for me to think, because whatever that I think, my parents will override it. So I let my parents to think for me. So, and the parents are confused. Why is it my son or my daughter at the age of 18 doesn't know how to choose? Of course, for 17 years of their lives, they've not been trained how to think. Do you think that just at the age of 17 they can think for themselves? So probably the cells that are involved in thinking are not fully developed at that particular point in time. Yeah. So this is where parenting takes time. The children doesn't become a thinking person like that. They need to be nurtured from the first 6 years to the second 6 years and to the third 6 years. Yes, Ibu Rose, go ahead. And
how do you know that I want to talk? Okay, I'd like to ask you to actually share regarding how parents can teach the children to choose right from when they were small, because sometimes when we say that parents, most of the time we without any ill intention, we made a choice. We choose for our children because sometimes they took too long to choose, right? But the result is when we do that, the children will not learn how to choose, and not just that, they do not learn how to be responsible, because when the thing that they were asked to do is not their choice, then they don't learn about ownership. And that is why in the situation that we are now, in the world that we are living, there are adults who don't take ownership what they do, because these are part of the reasons or the consequence of the parenting before. So what I would like you to share and take the moment to share, because there are some of us here who have little children, and some of us have to choose grandchildren. How can we actually help to help these little children to actually make their choose, or to develop their ability to make the decision and to be responsible.
Okay.
And to have the principle, because when we do this, we are teaching them to have principle in their life.
Yeah. If I were to take a step back from that question, going to a very important principle in developing our children, what Ibu Rose mentioned just now, encouraging our children to choose. Stephen Covey takes that, the freedom to choose, as the first birth gift. When humans come into this world, Covey says that they have 3 birth gifts. 3 gifts. Gift number 1 is the freedom to choose. And if we as parents do not stimulate that, we are failing our children in their primary birth gift. So that's why parents, we need to give every opportunity to our children to choose, even when they are not smart enough to determine whether their choice is the right one or not. We want to give them the freedom, the opportunity to choose, and guide them with respect to their choice, instead of forcing them to make a certain choice. It's just that, remember, sometimes they make decisions that are not convenient to us. So parents, I need to just reassure you that parenting is inconvenient because their agenda is different from ours. So that's why it is inconvenient. If you can just go beyond the inconvenience, that is when you let the child to grow. If you enforce your convenience on them, that's when you stunt the growth of your child. It is convenient for you, for the child, to eat the bread with peanut butter on it. Yeah, it's convenient because you have the peanut butter, you have the bread, you put the peanut butter on the bread, and you get the child to eat it. It's not convenient when the child says, "I'll eat it later." Not convenient because you want to clear up the table quickly. Bonnie, does that happen to you? Not convenient. Sometimes you have the peanut butter and the bread, and they say, "I want to put in some soy sauce and tomato sauce on it. I want to experiment." Not convenient. Yeah, because when they eat, it doesn't taste nice. They ask you to finish it. Not convenient. However, my approach to things is this: parenting is not about convenience. Parenting is about keeping the child safe and stimulating the child for growth. It's not convenient. So as long as whatever the choice that they make doesn't hurt or harm them, no matter how inconvenient it is to you, you want to be able to comply with that. Okay, because the principle behind it is the freedom to choose. So when I talk about principle just now, to understand, convenience is not a principle. The principle is the freedom to choose, because it allows the child to use their own thinking, and that's how they learn to think, because when they know how to think, they can run their own lives later when they grow up. Because our role is temporary. I hope it doesn't cause some parents here to feel sad right now, but that's the fact. Our role is temporary. When they are dependent on us, that's where we perform our role. And our role, part of it is to keep them safe when they are dependent on us, and also to stimulate the growth so that they can become independent. When they become independent, that's a different role that we can play after that. Yeah. So that's why when I mentioned earlier that sometimes parents, they go into their own weakness in order to create I would say an unhealthy relationship with the children. They work on their own weakness to get the child to operate from their weakness. In that way, they become dependent on each other so that forever they'll be together. That's also a psychology that we need to be very careful about, because parents. Yeah, you want to say something?
Sorry. Yeah, I might miss. Did you actually teach or share? Sorry, not the word. It's not teach. You actually share how to help out the little children to make choices.
Yeah, it's all about asking questions. It's all about asking questions. Ask them. And the thing about children is that it depends on the level of thinking development, yeah, cognitive development. When they are small, when you ask questions, use close-ended questions. Do you want this or that? Give choices. Yeah. Do you want to have eggs with your toast, or do you want to have peanut butter and jelly with your toast? So using open-ended choices, sorry, close-ended choices, it helps them to make that decision easier. As they grow up, probably by the age of, when they go past the 6 years, then you can begin to use open-ended questions, because now they have more things that they can bring into the thinking process to be able to answer open-ended questions. Below the age of 6, I think below the age of 6, that's when use close-ended questions, but choice between this or that. Do you want to wear this red dress or this blue dress right now? You ask your 2-year-old. So when they know how to make choices, then you can ask them, which dress do you want to wear today? However, earlier on, do you want to wear this white one or this blue one? Yeah. And we started that with our Sophia when she was about 1 month old, and they know how to make their choices, to be able to respect that. Okay. So we went in a little bit deeper into that. Any other points or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So you mentioned about interdependent between child and parent based on weakness. Okay, can you explain that more? I didn't quite get that.
Based on weakness. Sometimes parents use guilt trap. How many of you have if your children are much bigger, some parents they tend to say these words. If you have heard any of your parent friends say, "Oh, my child grows so fast," yeah, because what? Because they want the child to be as that 2-year-old or 3-year-old. Now the child is already 5 or 6 years old, and part of it is what we consider as secondary gain. Secondary gain is that the some parents, because their own insecurity, they want the child to continue to rely on them. They want that stage of dependence to be lengthened. So the parents' weakness is they themselves are insecure, and to feed the insecurity, they create a child who is the word is dependent on them. So they do not want the child to be independent, because when the child is independent, then they feel insecure. So this is a toxic relationship.
Okay,
Does
got
that
it.
make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So let's move on to the next one. Is that this next one is about, we call it leadership by compass. Leadership by compass here refers to the principles that we need to bring into our being, so that when we operate from these principles, no matter the changes that are happening around us, these principles are going to stay in our stead. Yeah? Meaning to say, I've lived 6 decades already in this world, 6 decades. And a lot of, I've watched fashion come and go. Yeah? So fashion come and go. So similarly with human beings, a lot of things change. However, the nature of human nature still remains. So this is what we are referring to, the compass. So as parents, once we have the compass, no matter how much the map on the ground changes, we are aware of which direction that we can take our journey to. Because principles, unlike values, are objective and external. Yeah? Principles operate in obedience to natural laws, regardless of condition, regardless whether you grow up in Malaysia or in China or in UK or in America. The nature of human nature remains the same. However, social structures are different. So instead of operating from social structures, we operate from human principles. In that way, it allows us to operate whether we are in Malaysia, in China, in UK, in America. We are able to adjust ourselves to the social structure. If we orient ourselves to the social structure, the moment we leave Malaysia, we are in deep trouble. So this is what we are referring to. Principles are timeless. Values are subjective and internal. They are just like the maps. Maps are not the territories. Maps are just subjective attempts to describe or represent the territory out there. The more closely our values, which is our maps, are aligned with the correct principles, the territory, when our maps are aligned with the territory, or when our values are aligned with the principle, then our lives will be more accurate and more useful. Otherwise, we keep bumping into things like a map saying that there is a road over here, whereas actually it's a river. So notice how dangerous your life can be. So when we talk about leadership by campus, we are talking about having our life aligned to the 4 directions. Okay? So at the core of it, we have our principles. Then there are these 4 dimensions of life that we need to align with. Yeah? One is security. Security, it represents our sense of worth, identity, emotional anchorage, our self-esteem and personal strength. So this gives us security. So when we bring our children up, we want them to have a strong sense of security. On one end of the scale, one end of the spectrum, where you have low security, you have a child who is extremely insecure. In the other end of the spectrum, high security, this child has a deep sense of high intrinsic worth. So we are talking about a child who has a strong sense of self-worth, identity, esteem, and personal strength. So when we talk about this part of the principle is to understanding the nature of human nature to develop a child with a high sense of intrinsic worth. To be able to get the child to have a solid sense of self. This in neurosemantics, we talk about the matrix of self. Because when the matrix of self is healthy, then the child will have this sense of security in his or her life. And similarly for us as well. Okay. The second one is guidance. Because in order for us to navigate our life, we need guidance. Guidance is the direction that we receive in life. So one end of the spectrum of guidance, the lower end, when a person has low guidance, this person has strong physical addictions and emotional tendencies that are conditioned by their centering on selfish, sensual, or social lifestyle. So low guidance. They are being, the direction of their life is being determined by the physical and emotional addictions. In the middle, over here, is a person who have development of social conscience. So now this person has developed social conscience. The conscience educated and cultivated by centering on human institutions, traditions, and relationships. So notice from low to middle guidance. In the high end of the spectrum is a person who have spiritual conscience, wherein guidance comes from inspired or inspiring sources, a compass centered on true principle. So when we talk about guidance, you have that low, middle, and high. So what we want to be able to focus on is from medium to high guidance. So to bring away ourselves and our children from the physical addictions and emotional dependencies to go into social conscience and spiritual quotients over here. So this is the dimension of guidance. And the next one is the dimension of wisdom. Wisdom suggests a sage perspective on life, a sense of balance, a keen understanding of how various parts and principles apply and relate to each other. We are talking the systemic nature of things. It is not just straightforward cause and effect. Now we are talking about the systemic nature of things. So the wisdom spectrum, the low end, we have people who have inaccurate maps, which cause people to base their thinking on distorted, discordant principles. So these people, they are going through a lot of cognitive distortions and biases in life, and because of that, they have inaccurate maps about themselves, about others, and about the world. Yeah. And the other end of the spectrum is people who have high wisdom and accurate and complete compass, wherein all parts and principles are properly related to each other. So this is the other end of that spectrum. Okay? So to move from low to high wisdom, yes, it takes time. At the same time, when we align our parenting to develop this wisdom in our children, that's when we are getting the maximum return on our investment in bringing up our children. Okay, and the next dimension is the dimension of power. Okay? Power is the capacity to act, the strength and courage to accomplish something. Okay? And later on, when we go into what it is that we need to do, all of this will come into play. Yeah, power is the vital energy to make choices and decisions. So again, we were talking earlier about the freedom to choose, giving our children the opportunity to think, to choose. So it's about power. It's about helping them to develop this power. It represents the capacity to overcome deeply embedded habits and cultivate higher and effective habits. Do we not have unresourceful habits? Power is about to be able to push off or leave the unresourceful, the habits that has been embedded, and to cultivate new one. Yeah. So the spectrum of power, at the low end of the spectrum, people who are powerless, they are insecure, they are products of what happens or has happened to them. So in neurosemantics, we talk about the power zone, people who don't have full control over the thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. So they are low in power. So these are people who are dependent on circumstances and on others, a reflection of other people's opinions and directions. And because of that, they have no real comprehension of true joy and happiness, because they allow others to control their lives. So at the high end of the spectrum of power is people with vision and discipline, whose lives are functional products of personal decisions rather than external conditions. I like the quotation by Eliud Kipchoge. Yeah, Eliud Kipchoge is currently the top marathoner in the world today. He said, "People who have low or no discipline, they are a slave to whatever is outside there, to circumstance, to people's opinions. They are a slave to this. The people who are truly free in life are people who have discipline." Yeah? So this is power. They can use their own power to act according to the thinking, feeling, and to the competencies of the saying, doing. These people make things happen. They are proactive. They choose their responses to situations based upon timeless principles and universal standards. They take responsibility for their feelings, moods, and attitudes as well as their thoughts and action. They don't throw that to others. You make me feel that way. No, they know that they feel that way because of them. So these are the dimensions of the principles that we are talking about when we talk about principle-centered parenting. We are talking about parenting that are centered on developing the security, the guidance, the wisdom, and the power in our children. So these are the 4 dimensions that we need to look out for when we develop our children, when we grow our children, so that they will grow to possess these 4 dimensions. Again, the dimension of security, the dimension of guidance, the dimension of wisdom, and the dimension of power. So no matter what's outside there, what we are focused on, how to bring our children to be operating from the high end of security, from the high end of the spectrum of guidance, from the high end of the spectrum of wisdom, and also from the high end of the spectrum of power. So these are what we focus on, the 4 dimensions of the principles that we want to help our children to grow. Okay, I'm going to pause there and invite any questions or comments. Yes, Satria, anything that you like to say?
I'm okay, a bit heavy. Go through it again.
Yes.
I agree. I was just telling myself I'm gonna have to watch this recording again. There's so many so many nuggets everywhere.
Okay. Thank you, Marilyn. Yeah. Bonnie, I haven't heard anything from you yet.
Yeah, because I'm multitasking. My daughter decided that she wants to eat her nasi goreng later. So she's looking at me now while talking to her. So I said, do you want to eat now or you want to eat later? Then she says, no, I don't want to eat. I said, later? Okay, later. So it had to be during class. Hello.
Thank you. Hello.
So about choices, yeah. Wait, mommy talk to me first, 1 minute. Okay, after this. She wants to talk as well. Choices, I do give her a lot of choices. Sometimes it's really not easy, especially food. So it's like Nutella or Kaya. She doesn't eat peanut butter jelly.
Okay.
If she did, I'll be happy too. So it's and then sometimes I let her choose the road to my mother's house. So and sometimes I let her choose, like if you want to go to McDonald's or not, she get to choose. So I think that part I'm doing it right. The rest I'm not so sure. But
yeah. Good.
What do you want to say to Uncle? Say hello, Uncle. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Alia Dina Musafan.
Waalaikumsalam, Alia.
Okay, clever.
Not
Okay,
uncle lah, grandfather.
Your favorite color is blue. Okay. Thank you, Alia, for sharing.
Thank you, Alia.
Yeah, they want to be involved in your conversations, right? At this age.
Yeah.
So whenever I do many meetings and all that, I try my best to let her be part of it a little bit, because that's the part of the, I guess, the exposure. So I don't know right or wrong lah, but I just make it normal.
So
but it's tough, okay? Parenting is tough.
oh yes, because there is that part we are going to cover in the next topic. There is that part of the cognitive developmental level.
Oh my God, they are totally your mirror. So whatever bad you think you're not doing or doing, they will mirror you.
So when you bring them into your discussions, you need to translate it according to their cognitive ability level. Only then they'll have an appreciation. So that's why I say, parenting it requires time, and it may not be so convenient because you have to do that translation.
Yes. And I like to always say a special delivery, but it doesn't always work for the food. Maybe the mommy's cooking is not good.
Okay, Bonnie, thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. And Samson, go ahead. You raise your hand. Samson, are you there? Because I see the hand raised. Okay. Good.
Yeah, Mazuki.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Shakir.
I wonder, you are talking about what is the range of the age of the children.
Sorry?
What range of the children age that you are focusing when you deliver this? From what age to what age?
So currently, I'm talking in general. So that's why in the next section, as a reminder at the end, I have a mention about the developmental stages. So currently, in general, it covers all ages. So when you apply it, you need to customize to the child to their level.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I've been wondering because there are several stages of these kids' developments. Yes, there are certain stages that it is not predictable. So maybe during the childhood time, it's okay. As they grow up, it becomes differently.
Yeah.
Secondly, during the childhood time, they look very unhappy and whatnot. But as they grow along, they become more mature. Sometimes this kind of development is unpredictable. That's why I sometimes, when it comes to this topic, I tend to be silent because there are many things uncontrollables because of the environment, as being written just now. Yes, the school not somehow rather helping how to develop our children to think, because the thinking capability is not given. As far I know, they are given to be like a parrot, right? When they go to school, they have to memorize. So sometimes that's where I feel a bit disappointed because the students are not in liberty. They are not at liberty to give their opinion, their ideas, right? So the appreciation is not timely given to them. So when we talk about principle, because it's guided by the principle that we uphold, this is more, we are talking about the two worlds. I mean, two culture. One culture is an in-house family culture because leadership started from home. Secondly, outside, the influence factor. So that's where the conflict come in between outside and internal and external factors. So maybe the parent is principal. They are using principal to train the kids. When they go out, this is not within their control. So I really enjoy listening to this, but I know as we go along, we have kids, we see what happened now. So the biggest question mark in my head now, as you know, our world now be controlled by the IoT, Internet of Things. And then these people are being exposed because they are born with IoT. We have to learn. They live with it. So I wonder, so much time is on IoT, Internet of Things. There's not much time between the parents and the kid. So how will you address the similarity so that when you come to the cognitive side, that's where the IoT will take control of the brain later on. I do not know, just to be probe into some ideas. Please, Mazuki, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. So that's why these 4 dimensions that I showed earlier, the 4 dimensions of security, guidance, wisdom, and power. So those are the areas that we want to develop in our children. And knowing that the stages are different from 0 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18, and then from 18 onwards, the different stages. So there are different ways of our interacting with them. So as parents, that's why we need to understand how we are interacting, communicating, and relating with our children according to their developmental stages. So thank you, Dr. Shakir, for asking that question, because it will help me to bring it the next topic, that from neurosemantics perspective, what do we focus on in order to help achieve the growth of the focus, the principles in the 4 dimensions. So that's why in neurosemantics, the first one that we want to be able to, so as parents, these are I consider them, these are competencies that we need to equip ourselves with. Because once we have these competencies, then no matter what the influences coming from the internet or surrounding, when we bring up our children based upon these core competencies, then it makes it easier for us to maintain that that rapport of values between us and them, and to be able to help them to grow as human beings. So from the nature of human nature, this is what we call the self-actualization psychology. For us as parents to understand what are the models for self-actualization, to know how the models operate. So in the models of self-actualization, we talk about the models. One is the models of self-actualization. The next is the self-actualization characteristics. What are the characteristics of the self-actualizing human being? Because from those characteristics, we know the end game when we talk about bringing our children, who they will become in terms of characteristics. Then the 8 core competencies for actualizing the highest and best. So what are the competencies that will help the child, or not just the child, to help us to actualize our highest and best self? So this comes from the nature of human nature, or the self-actualization psychology. So as parents, we need to know this. Yeah. And just to mention over here, currently I have a request from one of my current students wanting to learn about this self-actualization psychology. So I'll be soon running a program, which is just a 2-day program on the introduction to self-actualization psychology. So when we talk about the neurosemantics of parenting, what will help us to grow our children to be able to run through the 4 dimensions of the principles are: the first one is the nature of human nature. The next one is, as parents, we need to understand our child's development. Because once we understand our child's development, then we can package the stimulation to the child according to what they need. A good example that Bonnie mentioned just now, that you expose your Alia to the things that orang dewasa talk about, these adults talk about, and all this. It's just that knowing Alia's development stage, you need to translate whatever that has been discussed to the language that she can understand. So when we talk about understanding your child's development, we have talked about the psychosocial stages of Erik Erikson, then the cognitive development stages, Jean Piaget, and the belief stages of Fowler, and also the stages of adult development of Robert Kegan. So these are fundamental knowledge that we as parents need to know, because in that way it allows us to understand our child's development. So the existential question of mommy, where do babies come from? So the way that you answer that question will change if the child is 2 years old, if the child is 8 years old, or if the child is 12 years old. So you need to package the answer according to the child's development. So by having a thorough understanding of the psychosocial stages, cognitive development stages, belief stages, and stages of adult development allows us to nurture the principles in our children according to what's relevant for their development. Yeah. And in order to be able to bring all of this to them, because this is you and that's them over there, then as parents, we need to have relational skills. Yeah? Relational skills, what are they? The skill of communicating and the skill of relating. So these skills come together. And I keep mentioning this over and over again. In today's day and age, parents need to have the skill of coaching. We cannot be telling them anymore. We need to coach them from this level to the next level. It is not about telling. Now it's about coaching them to reach that stage. And maybe Mark and Marilyn, you are used to coaching swimmers. You know that they don't go to that level just by you telling them. You need to coach them. Some of them takes less coaching to get to the next level. Some of them needs more coaching. However, the skill of coaching needs to come in. And the other skill is the skill of teaching or facilitating learning. Because children, they come fully equipped with their intelligences. It's just that they don't have the content yet. They need to learn how to handle the processes of their operation, and they need to learn how to take in information, content. So this is where the skill for parents, the skill of bringing in, one is content. Actually, content is only 20% critical for children. The teaching or the learning facilitating learning for the child is more about processes, the process of thinking, the process of emoting, the process of speaking, the process of doing. So to teach them so that they will learn these processes. So parents need to have the skill of facilitating learning. So these are I would say the foundational competencies that parents need to have in order to facilitate the child's development according to the principles. Because what's out there, as Dr. Shakir mentioned, from the internet, from the society, they are being bombarded by bits of information. And which of these bits of information are useful and which of them they are not useful. So as parents, when they are growing up, when they are dependent on you, you are the one who's acting as the filter for them to facilitate for them. These are useful, these are not useful, because a lot of the information coming at them may be injurious to them, may be harmful to them. So that's at the stage of when they are dependent. However, you need to bring them to the next stage of independence. Before they get to be independent, they need to activate their thinking skill so that they can then make the decisions to filter out which is the resourceful one, which are not the resourceful one. So what do they use to filter? So this is where principles come in. When they have the principles in place, then no matter what comes, they can filter out what is harmful and what is useful. If they are not parented with principles at the center, at the core, that's when every time the sand shifts, every time the tide shifts, the sand also shifts. So they lose focus, they lose their balance. So when parents, you have this skill, you are able to bring the children up centered on principles. So it also means that we as parents need to be centered on principles first before we can get our children to be centered on principles, because from the internet, from society, there are conflicting information. I call them bits of information, conflicting bits of information. How do they make sense? How do they make meaning of those information? It depends on the principles that they have in place. we cannot purely depend on values, because values may be influenced by time, by society. So we need to move one step higher, going at principles based upon principles from the natural law. So this is what parenting that is principle centered is all about. Okay, so let me rest there. Coming to the end already. So I'd like to invite any questions or comments.
So I have a question. So the external bits of information or external things that come to the child can be regarded as weeds in the farming principle. So what are ways or questions that we can use to find the weeds in order for us to be aware and be able to address?
What drives our thinking are our values. Our values drive our thinking. Our values color the way that we make meaning from the bits of information. So what this session is about is not to allow our values to be determined by society, to be determined by what's out there. We want to direct our how do I say it? We want to design our values based upon principles. In that way, our values has a solid foundation, because they are based upon timeless principles. And since our values are based on timeless principles, then how we interpret those bits of information, how we make sense of those bits of information, will allow us to make the decision whether this information is hurtful or harmful, or this bit of information is beneficial to me. So, so as an adult, this is what we want our children to be. We want them to have these principles directing their values, so that when the information comes to us and later on comes to them, they have a means of rejecting the ones that are harmful and accepting the ones that are useful and beneficial. And in today's day and age, what I would say is that very few people are able to do that. So that's why we have things like partisan ideas based on political parties, ideas based upon societies, and people are not driving their own ideas based upon values that are guided by principles, but they are allowing their ideas, allowing their thoughts to be controlled by what's out there. Dr. Shakir mentioned about Internet of Things. So those are things that can be injurious. And many people are not able to tell the difference between bits of information that are useful and bits of information that are not useful. The example that we can think of right now is about the pandemic, about COVID. Some people are even refusing vaccination. Some people, after being vaccinated, they just go out without any mass social distancing, even though the scientific evidence says that even if you have been double vaccinated already, fully vaccinated, you can contract COVID. It may be asymptomatic, or it may be life-threatening. So, so to be able to have that sense, be able to think for yourself based upon the information, to filter through what is useful and what is harmful. So once our values are driven by principles, it makes that easier for us to do that.
Can I share something? Marzuki?
Yes, please, Dr. Shakir, go ahead.
Yeah, when it comes to values, there are few areas directly or indirectly applicable to the various levels of people according to their social emotional development and according to their cognitive development. Because we are talking about values, these values depends on the various levels of the understanding about the environment. And the value is the governing or the thing that generates your behavior, that generates your decision making. So of course, at the highest, at the peak level of social emotional capability, a person can see the difference between himself and the problem. There are people who cannot see the problem different than themselves. There's another values. If that is happening, that means the person is not holding any values, because the values are the ones supposed to generate the strength, the capability to see things and being able to discern between himself and the issue, because that's what they call it, human agility. Be able to be in control of the situation, and we are not subject to the issue. So the values, a person is talking about self-coherent. He states certain things based on the value that he upholds, and that is high levels of what I call self-altering person. And at the cognitive capability, being able to say that these people can see things from different four bases, from cognitive in the sense of contact, the contextual, secondly, the relationship, thirdly, the process, and be able to coordinate the three things, right? To the context, relationship, and process. They can coordinate that one so that they become transformationals. So these levels of transformational activity need higher level of social, emotional, and cognitive. So social, emotional is what is it to me? What is it to others? What is it? What that I really want for others to better? There are some people, somebody cannot go against his opinion because it affecting his integrity. Then some people say, it's okay, as long as you say anything, I accept it. I can be your friend, even though I disagree with you. That is seniority. That's very high level of, call it, upholds on the values. We can be different, but we can be friends. There are people, no, when you disagree with me, then no more friendship. So that separates the whole thing. In fact, very interesting topic when it comes to about Robert Higgins. He was talking about adult development, as we mentioned by Marzuki just now. That's a bit of my sharing. Is it okay?
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Shakir. I appreciate your giving more depth into what we have just discussed. So thank you very much. Appreciate that very much. Yes. Okay. Right. So it's already 9:40 on my clock, so we've gone past the time. However, are there any questions that anybody has right now that I may put here so that we can discuss on these questions? Are there any questions? So if no questions, then I would like to invite some final words or sharing from each and every one of you before we end, so that we can just consolidate what we have discussed this evening. So I'd like to start off with the bottom of my screen. Samson, do you have anything that you'd like to say or comment before we end as final words?
Okay, I want to say it's a privilege to be part of this conversation. I look forward to more of such kind of discussion, because most of the work we do, we don't have focus on this, but it has added value to what we will be doing in time to come or in our activities. Very appreciative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Samson, for being here this evening. Bonnie, you're next.
It's just very, how is it, comforting to be in this class and to know you get some points right. That's about it, because sometimes it's like walking in the blind. I don't know what I'm doing. So it's really comforting, I think, to be part of the group and to listen to your words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Marzuki. And Ibu Rose.
Thank you very much. So you've mentioned Ibu Rose, so I'll go to her. Ibu Rose, is there anything that you like to comment?
Great sharing tonight, especially, and I love the explanation. And I'm thinking about writing a book based on this. And I really need you to help me to get me the recording, because some of the presentation I missed because the internet was not very good up here. Okay, great sharing. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ibu Rose and Pak Riko. Go ahead, Pak Riko.
Yes, thank you, Pak Marzuki. Surprise for me because you explained about the neurosemantic of parenting with the models of self-actualization and the end of the neurosemantic of parent. You asked about the relational skills, communicating, relating, coaching, and teaching. Meta Wi-Fi. Fantastic.
Thank you. Meta high five. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Over to you, Chin Tao Wee. I hope I said your name right. Do you have audio or you don't have audio? Okay. I'll move on to Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, Mr. Marzuki. Hi, Ibu Rose. Yeah, another fantastic session. You know, Deidre always asks me to attend this. I think she thinks it's really important that we learn how to raise our kids together. And every time when I go through a session, it really blows my mind. And you know, sometimes it hurts because you go like, "Oh shit, I'm like that." Oh no, I'm like that too. Oh my goodness. Oh. But overall, you know, I think there are steps there that teaches us on how to actually correct ourselves. I think that's the most important thing. I love the idea of law of the farm. I think that's fantastic, going through the steps, leading by example, mirroring, especially in coaching as well. You know, we coach our swimmers, not only our kids. Actually, it's easy to coach other people's children. I find it really difficult to coach my own. But it's great. It's been fun. Yeah. Also giving them decisions, making them make decisions when they're young. Sometimes I feel, I'm not sure whether I'm being biased or what, but I think sometimes gender does sometimes make a difference as well. I've got a girl and a boy. My little girl at 1 year old, she chooses her own clothes. She knows what she wants. For breakfast, or like for fruits, if I ask her what she wants, papaya or pineapple, and she'll say durian. So she starts to make her own decisions, you know, on top of that, on top of the two A and B that we give her. So it's been pretty interesting to see that sometimes we're making the right decisions, not right decisions, the right choices and the right questions, asking them the right questions as well. So yeah, thank you again, Mr. Marzuki, for a wonderful session. Totally enjoyed it, and can't wait for the next session. Good night, Ibu Rose. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. By the way, how old is Charlotte now?
Charlotte just turned 3.
3.
She's 3. Yeah. Max is 6. Yeah.
So what she's doing now has nothing to do with the fact that she's a girl or a boy. Until about the age of about 7 or 8, children are asexual.
Asexual.
Yeah. It's just her. It's just Charlotte. She's
Charlotte,
like
yeah.
that.
She tends to make. She has a different mind, and sometimes I'm a bit worried because is it like sometimes can be quite rude. Sometimes when you give her NB and she chooses C, you know, might be quite intriguing for other people when she has her own decision, especially at 3 when she says no with a really strong no, like no, you know, like a really strong no. So sometimes this is strong characteristics or
3 years old.
Yeah.
That's her first stage of individuating. So that's why no is very strong. She needs to learn, and she needs to learn that.
Meta yes, meta no.
Yeah. So you want to help her retain that strength of yeses and no, so that she can create a totally independent matrix of self, rather than a self that is attached to mama, that is attached to papa. So she wants to create that healthy matrix. So to be able to respect a no. When she says no, it means no. Be able to respect that. That's how you have that sense of self grow healthy. Even though it's very painful when she says no to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mark.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. So moving over to, Suyin has left, so move over to Marilyn. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Parenting is a very serious. Every time this class reminds me of what a big responsibility we have as parents. I think, Kairos, you can totally write a book about it. I would definitely read it, and I think all parents should. On a bigger scale of things, I think if every parent raised their child with principles, this world would be a better place. So thank you for this session.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Time. And I need to go and review the video again because I couldn't get my notes in or everything in time. So
yeah. Okay, I'll send the link. No worries.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving over to Dr. Shakir.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me. I really honor your invitation. This is something that food for thought, and that's why we have to explore more. Actually, we are looking at ourselves. This is mirroring, right? Maybe we have undergone all those activities. We have son, grandson, we have kids already, and sometimes we just close our lips like to observe, because sometimes the more we speak, the thing comes against whatever we speak. In practice, right? Maybe we uphold certain principle. I have to be sabar, and then we have to be patient. Especially when it comes to parenting, I think those who have kids understand what I'm saying. There are things that I just cannot put into words. The emotion, the feeling coming first when we talk about kids. Secondly, when you have grandson, it's totally different when you have kids. Am I right or not, Marzuki? Another area that you have to ponder. What's the difference when you have kids, when you have grandson, granddaughter, and then you know the difference. So how is it different? Like you call it your emotion, tell the story. What's the difference between grandson and your son? So with this, I say thank you for inviting me, and I'm very honored also be able to listen and whatever comment given by your good wife, very good author, on the parenting, because I'm not very good in this, because I'm also still learning. I'm a learning coach. I need to listen more than talking, right? So I hope that you bear with me wherever I say whether you accept it or not. That's the way what I am, because I cannot change what I am, who I am. Thank you for inviting me. Hope to see you again next week. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Dr. Shakir. And in case you parents have not figured it out, let a grandparent tell you the difference between parenting and grandparenting. Yeah, grandparenting is having children without the inconvenience. So parents, you bear all the inconveniences. Okay, Satya, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Tuan Raziki. As usual, mind-blowing, and a lot of ahas tonight. I see the things discussed tonight actually happen in my own family, whether parents or even children, and even siblings, so sisters, brothers, and that explains why they are the way they are from the points discussed tonight. And of course, at different stages of parenting by my parents or our parents, because we have a very big age gap. So me and the last brother is probably almost 30 years difference, 20 plus years. so it's a big difference in personality between me and the last one as well. So yeah, Thank you very much. And I also have to catch up on the video because it was quite fast on certain parts.
Okay, thank you, Satria. And last but not least, Danielle, I hope you've completed your 10,000 steps.
Yeah, completed already. Yes. Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Marzuki, for your great sharing tonight. I enjoy it very much. And when just now you talk about the difference of parenting and grandparenting, even though I'm still a parent, not a grandparent yet, but I got this kind of weird feeling because I got two girls, 7 and 10 years old, and sometimes they will challenge me. You know, my 10-year-old girl will challenge me that why you treat us like this. Then they'll say, I will not treat my own children next time in future. Then I will tell them, wait until you have your own kids. So I think, yeah, so it's definitely inconvenient to be a parent right now, but I think the journey is so wonderful. I learn many things actually from them every day. I love listening to their stories. So I think being a parent, even though it's not easy, but it's definitely a great journey for me. Thank you. Thank you for sharing tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Danielle, for that. When I say that parenting is inconvenient, it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. Because those of you who have attended APG, and Pak Rico is the master in APG. Sudah berapa kali Pak APG?
14
times, huh?
14 times. 14
times APG. One of the patterns in APG is the pleasuring pattern. So when you are able to run your own mind, whatever that your children do that previously displeasures you, you can pleasure it. So now you can parent your children without the inconvenience. Everything that your children does is pleasurable to you. So that's that paradigm that I just want to throw out at you. And I noticed this with my daughter. It seems like everything that her children does is so pleasurable and happy to her. It's about running the brain in the right way. Okay, so as we end, just like to mention a few things that we discussed. To summarize, the problems that we face in parenting in life, it arises due to short-term, quick fix thinking. So the solution to it is to center on natural principles. We talk about leadership by compass. Set our compass to the 4 dimensions of security, guidance, wisdom, and power. And from neurosemantics, we understand that in parenting, we need to be clear about 3 things. One is the self-actualization psychology. Second is to understand your child's development. And third is to equip ourselves with relational skills. So in that way, we'll be able to grow our children to be the best that they can be. So with that, thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate your being here. I look forward to seeing all of you. Next week, we rest 1 week. So the following week, we'll be meeting again on a topic on neurosemantics. So with that, I say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much. God bless all of you. Keep safe. Take care of yourself. Okay, so see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Night.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamazuki.
Thank you.
I'm still behind on the draft though.
Okay.
But definitely a lot of valuable things that can be brought
Hmm.
Itu